Now, um, it's funny that as the channel grows, as I receive more emails, as I put out more information, um, it's not all like, roses and flowers. I have received a couple of emails. Hold on one second, guys. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So as the channel grows, I received an email from someone regarding a comment that I made that says that all of the government employees are not lazy. So I suspect that as I continue putting more content and sharing information with you guys, I'm gonna offend some people. You know, I know that a lot of people want to start off with state contracts and county contracts. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, I just don't teach it and I don't recommend it. But what I want to do is, again, like I said, I want to be here for you. So I want to, if you're going to do that, if that's going to be the approach that you take because you feel that it's easier for you or it's the safe route, or, you just feel more comfortable. I mean, I want to support you. So I just want to tell you some of the things to watch out for in doing so, right? So I want to help you in your journey. And I kind of want to get that message across. But do not believe that it's actually easier. So that's what I wanted to say. Do not believe that doing those contracts is going to be easier than doing federal contracts. Yes, anyone could sit there and bid jobs and put together proposal, 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 but ultimately, what you're going to find is you're going to be burned out. You're spending a lot of time and not necessarily getting back the results that you're looking for. So once you get burned out and you get tired of bidding jobs, bidding jobs, bidding jobs unsuccessfully, then you'll start to kind of get the message of what I was talking about sooner. And like I said, I know there are people out there that it takes a bit longer to grasp the concepts, and there's been a lot of misinformation and given to everyone out there in this stuff. So I can understand, and like I said, I don't necessarily agree with that path, but I do understand because you're getting information from all over, from all places, and you don't know what to trust. And like Jim Rome says, you take in the information and you want to be a student, not a follower. So again, take what I say, consider it, and then take other information you say and put together the best possible program for you out there that you can do. But like I said, I want to share with you from my personal experiences what I've learned and what I know to be true in terms of the federal arena versus county contracts versus state contracts. All right, so just keep that in mind. Is I'm not telling you that you can't do county and state contracts and make money. I'm just telling you that it's going to be a lot more effort, a lot more time spent, and the overall what you're going to yield in terms of results, it's not going to be even on par with the federal level. So, kind of like when my first mentor told me is when I got my contractor's license, he said, Eric, listen, don't go out and start doing home remodels because once you start doing home remodels and renovation, he find that people get stuck in there because that becomes your comfort zone. So when I got started, he encouraged me to start off by doing uh, commercial projects because once I started off with doing commercial contracts, that became my new comfort zone, or my comfort zone from the beginning. So I never had the experience or the opportunity. I never actually sought out to do a home renovation or home remodel project, like a lot of people tell you, start small and then grow your way up. What we found was the opposite to be true. Once people did that for so long, they didn't really know how to ramp their businesses up to scale because now they're afraid, now they're comfortable, now they're unsure of themselves. And so it became more difficult once they had more information. A lot of times, and I found that to be true, is sometimes being ignorant is actually better. It's actually a strength. That you're an advantage because you don't know any better. So when you don't know any better, if you pursue a multi-million dollar contract with limited experience, limited knowledge, because I gave you the confidence to go out and do it, and you land that job, then everything works out, right? But once you know a lot of information and once you understand and you feel like you've got all this information, then you become more hesitant. You're like, well, this could happen and that can happen and other things, and you start questioning yourself and your abilities. So again, like I said, I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just telling you that I despise it, and it's not the path that will be the easiest for the majority of you guys out here and learning. And then in terms of the instructions that I teach, all right. So let's start off. Ooh, and that's not right. So number one was wrong. I guess my slide was wrong. So number one actually, and I wonder why that's wrong. Hold on. Let me give me a second, guys. All right, perfect. All right, yeah, I was. I don't know what happened there, but number one was wrong on the actual slide. Um, so number one, I've never personally met anyone who started to make millions of dollars. When I first started doing construction, um, even before I became a licensed contractor, I went out and I would go to the county bids and I would just walk around with the contractors and meet them and talk to them. And that was just a way for me to get experience and to kind of see what people were doing. And then what I realized was that, year after year, the same people kept showing up and the same people kept participating. And the jobs were the same relative size. So, I mean, you know, the same guy that when I was started was bidding these, $50,000 projects, $40,000 projects. 5 years later, the guy was still bidding $50,000, $40,000 projects. And I didn't see him progressing. I didn't see him growing his business. I didn't see him growing his staff. I didn't see him growing his team. I mean, he was basically in the same place. So he never actually moved forward. Only thing he did, I mean, it was just like running a mom and pop business. He was just in business to survive. And so, I find that e- quickly, really quickly, that once I became a licensed contractor and I started doing federal contracts, I was able to hire those same people that I met along my path 3, 4, 5 years earlier. And even today, when I have projects, I'm able to turn back and reach to some of these contractors who've been doing county bids for 10 years or 12 years. So, they're just living to get by. And if that's your goal, then, albeit. But you compare that to the opposite spectrum. When I worked on the military base, every single, I mean, almost every single federal contractor that I worked with had trucks, equipment, vehicles, manpower. I mean, they had like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment. They had multiple trucks. I mean, everyone was growing their organizations and everyone was making a lot of money. And so when you compare and contrast the two, again, like I always tell people, they're not actually better quality contractors. I'm not saying the electrician who's doing the federal contractor is actually a better electrician than the guy who's doing the state contracts. I'm not saying that by far. But it seems to me that the people that are working in that arena, um, from my personal again from my experiences, the opportunities that were afforded to them allow them to grow a lot faster, make a lot more money, be a lot more successful, and actually build themselves up to something important and significant. So that would be number one. All right, number two, no ability to scale. Contracts, state level, county contracts, offer zero leverage. You cannot utilize the resources of others. So what do I mean by that? Meaning that, going back to the same example, an electrical contractor, um, they don't allow you to work with your competition. They want you to work. You be the same, the guy who actually performs the work. So you're going to have to be the guy that gets out there and does the work. Whereas when I hire an electrician on a federal project, he can bring in as many other electricians as he wants as long as he gets the task accomplished. So I have not seen on any of the county contracts or state contracts where they allow a small guy, we're talking about a small company, the ability to leverage his talents, his resources so that he can scale the organization. All right. Now, by the way, guys, remember, you can always ask questions, send in messages. If you're just joining, I see we've got probably just under 20 people watching right now. So if you're out there, you're watching, make sure you leave a message, say hi, let me know you're out there. Um, because I'm sure at some point throughout the week I've seen your emails, I've seen your comments, I've seen your notes. So let me know you're out there, guys. This is interactive, so I will stop and interject for questions. But if you're not, I'm just going to keep pushing forward. All right. Number three requires that you have all the tools. So again, when you're looking at county and state contracts, they're going to ask you for your equipment, for manpower, for bonding, for licensing, for certifications, all that stuff. And I cannot stress time and time again how it's very difficult. I'm working on teaching construction companies about bonding and what I learned about bonding, how to grow your bonding out. But in theory, bonding grows over time. Let me take a step back. If you're not in construction, bonding is a form of insurance that you need in order to grow your business, in order to get bigger and bigger contracts. Well, the only way that you increase your bonding is by having more capital, right? Or, more lines of credit and money, and by doing larger projects. So now, if we take that example, how can you get larger projects and increase your bonding if you need your bonding to get larger projects, right? So what I'm saying is it's very difficult to do both. So if you're working and you're trying to grow the bonding, but you need the bonding to get larger contracts, the state and county, the way that their system works is, well, Eric, I can give you a $500,000 contract if you have 500,000 in bonding. Well, I don't have 500,000 in bonding. Well, then you can't get that contract. So then you have to stay working on smaller contracts below 100,000. Well, how will you ever get the bonding if you don't get the contracts? You guys follow me in that sense. So whereas in the federal arena, you can go out and you can work as a subcontractor on a $500,000 project or $1 million project, and the prime will cover the bonding. And then guess what will happen? Now you will get the experience. You'll have that on your books as a completed $1 million project, which you can then leverage to increase your bonding level. You follow me? So again, when you're looking at these smaller contracts, they want you to have all the tools and all the resources, but they're not giving you the contracts and opportunities to allow you or afford you the chance to get those resources. They want you to mysteriously somehow come up with lines of credits and money and bonding and stuff that you don't have because you're a small business. They want you to come up with that stuff, and then they'll give you a contract opportunity or an opportunity for a contract, but not a contract, just an opportunity for one. Well, many of us out here, we don't have those things. And so we're trying to get those things. A lot of us out here, like someone said in the beginning, they're starting from scratch. You're starting from zero. So you're not going to have all the tools needed in order to execute a contract. But if you were working in the federal arena, you could leverage other people, like we said, Charles and some of the other people in the group earlier, is that we can leverage other team members' resources so that we can go out and tackle that contract. Number four, pays slow more oftentimes than pays fast. This is, in my experience, the number one complaint among small business owners is that well, the government pays slow. Well, let's qualify government. The federal government pays on time. The local and the governments and the state governments are the ones who pay slow. I encourage everyone out there, if you don't believe me, if you want to double fact check what I'm saying, go to your local CSBE, SBE, go to those local organizations and listen to some of the complaints from the people. Don't take my word for it, because go to your wherever city you're in, Dallas, Hawaii. I saw San Francisco's in the building. I know we've got Orlando in the building. So go to your local city and go to the meetings where they're advocating for the small business programs for all the cities and municipalities. Go to the meetings and listen to some of the stories from the contractors there. And if you find that they're telling great stories that, well, hey man, we're always getting paid and we're taken care of, hey, then you may want to work with that organization. But I'm willing to bet that you're going to find the opposite is true more times than none. So whereas you're being paid slow versus paying paid fast. I'm not saying that they don't always pay on time, because I have had some agencies within the county pay me on time, but again, that's not the norm. The norm, what I see, is that a lot of times the contractors are being paid slow, not only by the county but by the contractors who the county uses to hire them. So if you're working as a sub underneath another contractor that the county's paying, a lot of times his excuse will be that he didn't get paid either, and so in turn he can't pay you. All right. I don't know what happened. It looks like these two slides got mixed up. But again, when you go live, that's kind of what happens, is that you make some mistakes. All right, number five, allows for underbidding. What does that mean? The county and state contracts are a bid to bid process, which a lot of people are bid process, but they allow people to bid less than the actual estimated value of the job. What does that mean? That means that even if the county suspects that the person who won the contract cannot perform the work for the respective price that they've offered the government, they will still push forward with the project anyways. I don't understand how that makes sense to anyone out there. If you've watched my latest video where I talked about that proposal going over to Nigeria, I shared with you guys my thought process on putting a bid together. And if you didn't watch that, take a look. And it is, I think I released it this week or last week. It's where I go in and I say the thought process of putting a bid together, an RFP together, and what kind of my ideas behind it. You don't want to get into a situation where, because you're so desperate for a project, so desperate for a job and to work for the government, that you take on something that is going to put you at a disadvantage or cause you to even risk losing money. You don't want to do that. It's not worth it. For especially for those of us starting out, we don't have any money to lose, so we don't want to put ourselves at a disadvantage right out the gate. All right. But at the county and state levels, they allow people to bid projects for less money than it costs to provide the materials. And they know this, and they still permit companies to do those projects, or at least go through the exercise of giving them a contract and watching them fail or underperform or not perform, and just basically delaying the process and taking up space, and in my opinion, wasting everyone's time. And I don't like being in that circuit. So if you don't want to be in that circuit, then consider some of these things we're talking about. Number six, they award projects without securing funding. This is really scary to me. You know, at the federal arena, they implement a policy, and I'm not sure how far back it goes, but they implemented a policy many, many years ago that stated that they cannot issue a contract, a solicitation for a contract, unless the funding has already been allocated for that project. If you go on FedBizOps, like many of you guys do on FedBizOps, if you're on FedBizOps, sometimes you'll see solicitations that says, this is not an RFP, this is just for information purposes, and it will state no funding has been allocated for this project yet. So if again, those types of things give you comfort, because you know that if you win a contract, you don't have to worry about the money. The money is already allocated, it's sitting there, and they can go ahead and once you complete whatever your scope of services are, they'll go ahead and cut you a check or wire you the money on that job. So again, whereas on the smaller municipalities, they don't have those same policies. So they will, if they have a project that needs to get accomplished, they'll put the project out there and not have any idea of how they're going to pay for it or fund it. And I just find that to be preposterous, because you end up going out there, winning the project, doing the work, putting your money, resources, supplier credit, your personal credit, lines of credit, monies borrowed from friends and family and fools. You put all this stuff on the line, and you have no way of getting it back. And the only answer they tell you is, well, we're sorry, we're trying to get the funding right now to pay you for the job. Well, that doesn't help me. I mean, I'm already vested. I've already got everything on the line. You guys have got, your products, you've got your materials, you've got your stuff, your building was built. And so how does that benefit me at this point where I'm at, where people now, I had to pay my employees, and my suppliers are calling me. How does that help me? So, that's something to be aware of. By the way, I don't see anyone making any comments on live chat. Test. Okay. All right, gotcha. Okay. All right, looks like I wasn't up to the latest. All right, gotcha. ATL checking in. I see you. All right. All right. Max Doggett has he says, my local procurement contact said I should just submit my request and not to contact the person in charge of the contract. Now, Max, question. Um, Hold on. Looks like I missed some stuff. Oh, all right, guys. So yeah, I just it looks like my live chat wasn't catching the messages. I was wondering because I didn't see anybody say anything. All right, okay, guys. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna go ahead and read some of the questions from the chat. All right, GovCon Giants got the Facebook group. Charles is asking about the consulting video. I'll be working on the slides for it tonight. Let's see. Just joined a Facebook group. What if we didn't do a capability statement yet? Don't worry, you've got time. We will be. I think my next live session we're going to be talking about capability statements. The funny thing is, when I was in Puerto Rico this week, and I was meeting with the ex procurement officer who gave out contracts in Puerto Rico, that's the very first thing that he stated. He goes, "Hey guys, we need a capability statement before we can move forward." So, just to kind of like confirm a lot of stuff that I've been telling you guys. Andre, yeah, so like I said, we'll be doing that. Local contracts for products. Yeah, John, what's going on, brother? Welcome. Happy to have you here tonight. Uh, John and I ride bicycles together down in Miami. We do critical mass every last Friday of the month. So, um, Paige, what about local contracts for products? Look into it. What I say for anyone out there looking at local contracts, try to meet with the most of your municipalities have small business people. Like there's like I know Miami, we got CSB. I think Broward's called CBE. So meet with those persons there, and listen, sit down and ask them the truth. Say, hey, I tell them the truth. I don't care. You can tell them my name. Hey, I watched a video from this crazy guy on YouTube, and he says that you guys don't pay on time. Is that true? And ask the questions. Don't be afraid. I mean, they should be telling you the truth out there. Someone should be. Um, so ask them the questions. Ask and find out. I do have a friend of mine. He does well on local contracts, but he's he's an exception to the rule. But if I compare him to the people that are doing federal contracts, they blow him out the water. Now, John's question: when selling a product to the federal government, to tax the product you're selling? Very good question, John. The federal government does not pay tax. So when you are selling a product to the government, no, they don't pay taxes on the product. So no, you can't market. You don't add taxes on the product. Excellent question, John. Thanks for that. Elmer, what's up, brother? Ooh, conscious, Wisconsin. What's the temperature like in Wisconsin right now? I bet it is freezing up there. I don't even envy you right now being in Wisconsin. Paige, good job. Good answer. Um, you okay? So Paige, you're right and partially not right. You don't have to necessarily get yourself a reseller certificate from your state to the give to the supplier. What I've done when I sold products, when I provide products to the government, normally, again, like I said, I'm a sub, so they will give me the federal agency will issue you their tax exempt letter, document, whatever it is, so that you can provide that to the manufacturer or whoever you're buying the product from, so that they don't have to pay the state tax. All right. So yeah, Paige is right. You can get a reseller certificate, but you don't have to have a reseller certificate. You can also, like I said, when on everything that I sell, normally it's like I said, Corps of Engineers or say DHS or FEMA, they will issue you a document that states that um, you don't need to pay taxes on that, and then that agency can use it. Fantastic. Um, so Max, what kind of project is this? Send me an email offline. What I'll do is I will ask you some questions, and then maybe what we can do is we'll do a Q&A. I'm thinking when we finish up today, I'll talk to you guys about some of my other ideas. Oh, Paige, the direct solution bid you turned in wasn't successful. I followed, but today he put on FPO. Should ask for feedback. Yes, definitely. You should ask for feedback. You should ask for. What happened? Mercury retrograde. All right. Yeah, Paige, I would definitely ask for feedback on that direct solicitation. Um, but hey, the person did reach out to you first, which meant either they didn't believe that you could deliver the products, or maybe they didn't like your pricing. So I would definitely go back and reach out to them. But I like the fact that they did send you direct solicitation for pricing. The other thing is, Paige, maybe reach out to them, because maybe what they did was, and I've been in a situation, but once you get to know the contracting officers, they will ask you for a price so that they can have something to measure against when they put the job out for bid. I hope that's not what happened to you, but it's okay if it does, because once you start to become an asset to the government agent itself or the contracting officer, then once you are in a position to to get to, or once you're in a position where you're qualified so that they can give you sole source contracts, then they'll feed you everything that you've got. I mean, they'll feed you every single contract that they have. So don't look at that page as a bad thing. I mean, a lot of people out here. How many guys? How many people watching today would love for the government to send them a direct solicitation? Everyone. So again, I would not. I would not look at that as a bad thing. I say you're in the right place. You're actually doing something well, because you're like probably the fourth or fifth person that I know of, that's reached out to me, who's had the government sending them direct solicitation. So I think you're in an excellent place. You're in an excellent position to start going into doing receiving non-negotiated. I mean non tongue twisted, to receiving negotiated contracts, where they're non-bid negotiated contracts where they're actually just going directly to you. You guys agree upon a mutual price that you can live with, they can live with, and you just keep getting to work. I think that's a great situation to be in. All right. So number 7, no blackball list, not widely used. All right. So yeah, on the local levels, I can tell you, man, I've seen some bad people out there. Um, I've seen some really bad contractors that I've known personally that have worked in Miami-Dade County. They have not paid their subs. They left the people's houses a disaster. They did. They left the people. I mean, they've left elderly people with no toilets, left them without kitchens, left them without air conditioning, and guess what? The county still gave them more contracts. So if you can take advantage of an elderly person, a disabled person, if you can leave them without heat and stuff, then if they won't blackball that guy, then they're not going to blackball anyone. And so I firmly believe that the local government, they won't blackball anyone. I've never seen anyone blackballed, and I know contractors who have not paid their subs. I personally know them. I mean, I know the first and last name. I know the guy. I know this person, and he didn't pay his subs, and he was never blackballed. I know people who work on county contracts that don't finish projects, that walk off from the jobs, that leave, and guess what? They just go out and they bid another project. Nothing happens to them. No penalties, no fines. They don't do anything for them. So I guess, for all you guys out here, or that type of person, then maybe this might be something good for you. But I'm not that kind of person. I want to do things ethically. I want to do things the right way, because ultimately, the people who are going to achieve the biggest success, the greatest success, are going to be the ones that do it the right way. Because there's so much opportunity out here and so much money that there's no reason for you. You don't have to. You don't have to cheat the system or buck the system. You don't have to go around to make it work. So yeah, like I said, there's no blackball list. That means that the prime contractor can effectively, he can abuse you and never be removed from an approved vendors list. And so for me, that doesn't give me any sense of warmness or comfort knowing that when working on these contracts. All right. Number 8, design for handyman. All right. So when I say that, I say this: it's made for people who are going to self-perform the work or bid so cheap as though you're going to self-perform the work. No, I mean, if you are out there and you are looking to get started, like I know Charles and I, we go back and forth on this consultant thing. you, you, there is no money, there's no room in there for consultants to jump on board for this stuff. There's no room or opportunities for you to utilize your expertise in program management and project management to put together a team to go after these contracts, because they're looking for a handyman. They want the guy, they want the person to have license, they want them to have all the documentation, but they want the price for the guy that's driving the van with the sticker on the side. You can't have it both ways. And we try to explain all the time. In fact, I was visiting some county offices a few weeks ago, some friends of mine, and they asked me about doing some home inspections stuff. And the guy told me, I said, "What?" He says, "Oh, we could pay $100 an inspection." $100 in inspection. I do a change order where I add my name and add a percentage on a piece of paper, and I'll make 1,000 or 1,500 bucks for signing my name to a piece of paper. Why would I want to go out and actually spend hours of work, brutal work, in the sun, and actually going out taking pictures, writing reports for $100? It doesn't make any sense. And it goes back to what I'm saying. There's no ability to scale. There's no way to leverage your time, your money, your resources, your expertise. And again, when I'm talking about county and state contracts, I'm not talking about the big guys. I'm talking about at the level where we're at, the small business level, the CSBE level, the SBE, DBE, those levels. The big guys are, yeah, they're the ones. I mean, they're getting over like fat cats. But the little guys, the ones that us that I'm out here talking to, there's no room, there's no opportunity for us to be able to actually grow out this business. Like I said, they want you to have all your certifications, all your licenses, all your bonding, all your money, but they want the price like as if you're driving the handyman work van. You guys know what I'm talking about. And as if you're picking up illegal workers that you're paying under the table. That's just the reality of the matter. All right, number 9, does not offer maximum leverage. Now, what do I mean by maximum leverage? It's funny because everyone here who's in my live chat just said we should look to. Oh, everyone just said we should look together. And hold on one second, guys. My phone is freaking ringing. Okay, so everyone that's in my live chat, we just said on the chat room window, right, that we should work together to create joint ventures. But guess what? At the local levels, they don't support that. They don't encourage that. That's not promoted. So you guys out there that are watching that know me, you already understand what that means and what that looks like. And even though you've never done it before, you understand because of the information I provided, the documentation I've shown you, like the All Small Mentor Protege program, that there are already systems in place for this stuff. So you understand that it's real. Now, you take that and compare it to what you see at the state and local level, you won't see any of that. There are no protocols for joint ventures. There are no protocols for teaming arrangements because it's not something that's supported. There's no way or opportunity to actually leverage your abilities and talents to grow a business out. So does not offer maximum leverage. Number 10, um, and don't get mad. Understand, kind of, let's qualify this. When I say that there's prejudice based on race, location, relationships, what I'm talking about is they still have minority, Section 3, public housing, and similar type of programs out there. Okay? And I know we all think that, wow, this is great that they got minority contracts. But you know what happens is this. Um, what we don't understand is we believe that these contracts is what's going to take us to actual scale our businesses, and it's not true. They're this small a piece of the pie, and it's enough just to get you in trouble. It's not enough to actually make you ultimately successful and lead you to the $5 million goal that I'm trying to get you at. That's not what it does. All it does is it's enough fine line of stuff to get you in trouble. So you have to understand that you cannot get success by demand. It's good until it doesn't benefit you anymore. So guess what? What do I teach? Find the best company you can to work with and for you. If you like myself, you start to become the prime, or you become the guy that's out there with the $5 million contract. Do you want to restrict yourself to hiring people because you're forced to, or do you want to hire the best company that makes sure that your contract gets done, make sure it gets done on time, make sure it gets done for the right price, or do you want to try to um, find and put yourself into a box where you're having to be forced to work with people who may not have your best interests at heart, who may be trying to undercut you or steal from you or take things from you. I'm not saying that's everyone, but when you become the big fish, then you'll understand why the bigger companies don't want to take a chance with people who are not interested in actually working. So what I'm saying by this comment is don't pigeonhole yourself because of any of these other attributes. You want to be the best company and you want to work with the best companies, regardless of what they look like, who they are, and where they're at. So keep that in mind is that, again, we have the, and you have it because you're sitting here watching me. You could be watching a lot of other things right now on TV. You could be on Facebook. You probably are on Facebook or Snapchat while you're watching me. But at the very least, you're spending time with me to be here today. So guess what? You are already above average by even spending this time to learn new skills, new information to help yourself grow personally and professionally. So with that, what I'm saying by that is that you as an individual are already an exceptional person. So now, if you know that you're an exceptional person, that means you're willing to put in the time, the work, the effort of whatever it needs in order to grow a real business. So don't worry about having to be given or handout. Just know that you already have handout programs because we are in the United States of America and we're doing federal contracts out there. Number 11, no training contract officers. Again, at the federal level, every contracting officer has to be certified. They have to be approved. They have to go through rigorous training. They have to understand the federal laws. They have to understand the FAR. And guess what those people do? They end up spending the majority of their life in that one position. Now, let's contrast that with the people in actual on the other side, the local people, if any one of us, and I'm sure we all do, wherever we live, we have a family member or friend that works for the county or one of these government agencies. What happens when someone doesn't do their job? They move them to another position. They move them to another place. When I when I was in a situation where, like I said, I was losing my business and I was under a lot of financial pressure, and I took a job at the county for about 6 months. They changed people who gave out the contracts. In 6 months, they changed the person who was issuing the contracts 5 times. 5 times in 6 months. So how are you going to be able to? How is it possible that those people all have sufficient and adequate training to help facilitate contracts for people like you and I? How are they going to even judge contracts, identify the contractors, make decisions needed in a pertinent critical decisions to select the right people for the job? They can't. They don't have the experience. And then once something happens, they just get moved off to another department, another division, another location. And maybe because Miami-Dade County is such a large agency, then maybe that happens more than maybe in your small town. That's quite possible. But I beg to say this: you're going to probably find that in any community, any city with more than a half million people, at the government agencies, you're going to see a lot of moving around, especially in these types of positions. Where if you contrast on the federal arena, a person is a contracting officer, they're a contracting officer. They may move to another agency, but they're still in the same role and they still understand, the 8A program, Hub Zone program, small business programs. They understand how those systems work. Number 12, funding is tied to federal or state grant and subsidy programs like CDBG. Anybody ever heard of SHIP program? Anybody ever heard of CDBG, Community Development Block Grants? All right. Did you realize that your county, yes, a lot of the funding comes from your tax dollars, but guess what? The rest of the money comes from the state, and if it's the state, it comes from the feds. So their dollars are coming from the federal agency. If their dollars are coming from federal agency, why don't you just work for the federal agency? You, if it's good enough for the state and the municipal government to rely upon, then don't you think it's good enough for you to rely upon? Our federal government is carrying all the states. What happens when certain states decide they didn't want to receive some of the dollars and stuff for Medicare and Medicaid? What happens? Then those programs go broke. What happens if our government decides not to bail out Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico, as we all know, is financially broke, right? They're in a deficit to our government. If our federal government decides not to bail them out, no roads are going to be fixed, no bridges are going to be fixed, no lights are going to be put back. They can't support themselves. That's the same. Do you want to rely on, would you want a contract with the city of Maya West, Puerto Rico, or the state or the territory of Puerto Rico, or would you rather have a state with a government contract with DHS or FEMA who can guarantee the monies? So it's the same thing in your area. Their monies a lot of times, and a large portion of it. By the way, again, fact check me. Go in there and find out with those agencies, with the municipalities, how much of their revenue, how much of their dollars that are used for contracts are actually being received from the federal government. And you'll be surprised to know it's a substantial portion of those dollars. Wow, I'm running out of time here. Number 13, constantly changing people. Federal employees tend to remain in long-term roles. We kind of touched on that. Again, what the point behind number 13 is they don't allow you to create what's called relationship building opportunities. In order to really maximize and start doing negotiated work, sole source work with the government, you got to build long-term relationships. It's kind of hard to build long-term relationships with people that change jobs, change positions all the time. So again, we're looking at how do we maximize opportunities for ourselves, leverage our skill sets to grow our businesses. We do that through the power of relationships, and so we need those persons to be around for a long time. I can say that I know at some of the bases here in Miami, we've had contracting officers here for 30 years, easily. Number 14, inconsistent bid process. With Miami-Dade County, and again, I can only talk about the things that I know and my experiences. Here, there are probably 20 to 30 different agencies within the county. For example, you have water and sewer, you've got human health services, you've got uh, you've got some other departments, divisions like parks, and so every one of those guys has their own bid process. The reason why I tell everyone if you stick with the federal government is because why? We will follow one rule book, and that's the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations. So the bid process are almost identical. If you go through FedBizOps and you look at the RFPs, they're using what's called SF or standard forms. So you'll see on there, that's why I gave an example on my latest video, is how do you complete standard form 1449, SF 1449. These are standard forms that people are working with. So it helps you because once you understand how to bid these jobs, then it becomes like that for you. And once you start doing your proposal writing and you have your proposal done, boom, it's the same thing. You're changing the names, you're changing the prices, you're changing the information in between. All right. Number 15, they can cancel contract at any time. I'll give you an example story, and I can tell you right now, we're gonna um, I was reading some of the notes. I apologize, guys. So what happens is when we won a contract down in Florida City. It's near Homestead, Florida, and our company name at the time had air conditioning in it. It was XYZ company, air conditioning company. Well, we won a job to install pipes underground, and it was like I think it was a little about $2.5 million contract with the city, with the city of Florida City. And all you Miami people out there, you know what that is. And for everyone else, just Google it. It's called Florida City, the city of Florida City, which is actually down there near where NASCAR does their race just a few weeks ago. It's on the way before you get to Key West, Florida. So we won a job down there, and it was to install pipes in the ground for the city of Florida City. But because our company name had air conditioning in it, someone protested our bid. What happened? So when they protested our bid, our argument was we had a license that allowed us to do. We had the appropriate state license to install pipes in the ground, which we met the minimum requirements. But because our name said air conditioning in it, the company who protested us didn't go back and look to see if we were qualified based on our licensing, bonding, and capital and all that thing. They just protested the bid. The city, because they didn't want to deal with lawyers and fighting it for it, decided to reject all the bids and not do the project. So how is that fair to anyone when we were won the job fair and square? We met all the criteria. We had all the appropriate licensing, the qualifications, and the people to do the job. How was that fair? And I say this because everything is not fair, so don't expect that everything will be fair in this world. However, what I'm saying is this: when and I had this conversation with someone recently. When you start spending a lot of time putting together bids and putting together jobs, you'll find that it's very time consuming. So especially when you start putting together big jobs, so you don't want to go through all that effort of putting together these jobs and the prices and getting and proposals together, spending all that amount of time just to lose it. Not because you didn't do the right thing, you didn't estimate it correctly, but because some agency decided that they didn't want to take on the how they didn't want to take on the challenge of fighting against someone who processes the job. All right. I'm gonna give you another story where this happened again. But before I do that, I'm looking in the chat. All right. All right. I'm gonna look into the chat and see what we're talking about. Let's see. I see some stuff on there. All right. Yep, Jason. So you heard this. You have the same experiences I've had. Okay. Jason Taylor. I'd rather work with talent. I agree. All right. Paige is sharing a video, which is a pretty good video. Um, Excellent. I see here Jose from Alamo said the same thing. He was $28,000 cheaper to another company with the city, and they canceled because the person processed it and they want another company to do it. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Some things they relist. Okay. Alamo, how do you contest? Jason. Eric, are you reading comments? Yes. No, I'm reading the comments. Yeah. Yeah. That's the same thing happened with me. They basically processed a job. Yeah, they rebid the job, but um, again, like you said, it was already kind of they had someone in mind to do it. Now let me contrast that with another story on the federal arena. I had my hangar project that I did on the federal government. Same thing. We put the project together, and in this particular instance, there was a company that they had listed that you had to actually, how do you say this? They wanted to model that company's design for designing these airplane hangars. And so, if you've heard, I don't know if I've shared the story all the way before, but what we did was we got the information we called the company, we got a copy of their design, we got a copy of their price and all that stuff, and we used that so that we knew, what we had to do to make the requirements. So essentially, we proposed an alternative design that was similar, and what happened was when the contract came out, we were the low bidder. The company whose design was used in the actual criteria. Now this is the federal government. The company whose design was used in the criteria for the bid, they protested my job because we had a cheaper price. Remember, they gave me their price. I didn't use it, but I knew kind of a ballpark figure where they protested my job. This is with the who was the agency that did this? Um, the Air Force. It was an Air Force project. They protested the job, and after we again, when they protest your job, you got to send them copies of all your emails, all correspondence with the government officials, all your documentation, everything. Right? They had to send all that information in, and it took about 3 to 5 months. And when they protested the job, the government reviewed everything. They looked into it, and they determined that we didn't do anything wrong, that we didn't have any advantages, we didn't have any opportunities, and they awarded us the contract. And then, you know what happened after that? After they awarded us the contract, they came back and asked us did we want to change our price because they had delayed in giving us the award for the 5 months or 6 months, whatever it took to get the actual contract in our hands. They came back and asked us did we want to do a price increase on that project. So that's the differences between the federal government and the local company, the local county. And I mean, like I said, I'm not saying that the local county didn't want to fight for me. Maybe they didn't have the money. Maybe they're broke. Maybe they couldn't afford to handle a protest. But whatever the case may be, if I don't want to put myself in that situation. I don't want to be spinning my wheels and spinning the again, we only have this much time. We all have a fixed amount of time out here. So I don't want to be spending the time that I have going after opportunities for someone to just turn me away and not give me a chance. All right? And question number 16, comment number 16. They're big enough to screw you, small enough to overextend and not pay you. Um, again, I will touch this off with another story. I was working on a contract with a friend of mine where the county gave out, um, they did an addendum that you have to sign, acknowledging an addendum that said you're only to do, say, pages 1, 2, 3, and 4. Even though the documents they provided had 25 pages, they said you only worry about pages 1, 2, 3, and 4. After we won the contract, they told me that all the pages were included, even though addendum said page 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then they threatened to sue or call their attorneys to sue us or not pay us for the contract because they made a mistake and they want to enforce it. Now, on the other hand, I had a friend of mine who did a contract with the Pinecrest Library that he built, and because it was the time where it was after the real estate market crash and everyone, all the agencies and all the municipalities were broke, they told him that he would never get paid his money, even though he was owed the money. He would never get paid because they didn't have the money and they would tie him up in court with lawyers. So again, they're big enough to take advantage of you and small enough to overextend themselves and not pay you. So, like I said, for me, um, that's more than enough reason to actually, go out there and be bothered with those entities and the county workers. So now what we're gonna do, we're actually at 7:04, and just really quickly, I'll share with you guys some of the things that are coming up. Like I said in the beginning, we are looking at. Let me pull this up. I have decided. I haven't figured out how it looks, what it looks like. I don't know yet, but I have through some of the materials that I'm reading and learning, I have decided to now consider offering consultant services, mentoring, coaching, registration help, certification assistance. I have identified someone in mind to hire as an assistant. Um, I was reluctant about doing this, but with all the people coming on board, I realized that maybe this is not enough, and my ultimate goal is to help you guys win contract awards. So, with that said, there is a link to a survey page. It's only, I think it's 5 questions. Um, and so go on there, click out the services that you need, or send me an email, whatever the case may be. I don't have a pricing structure. I don't know what's going to cost. Right now, the only thing I'm looking for really from anyone is if I can cover the cost of hiring this person to help me leverage my time so we can be able to extend this to you guys. So I don't have all the answers. I don't know what it looks like, but I was reading a book from Ray Dalio. Let me get his name right before I don't want to screw up his name. This guy is he's a good guy. Let me grab the name of his before I mess it up. Ray Dalio, that's his name. There you go. It's called Principles from Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio, actually, he is one of the largest like hedge fund investors, investment bankers, and he started off the same way. And he said that while he was growing his business, he was also helping other people grow their business, and so those relationships eventually cultivated to where they kind of married each other. And I do know that there's some people out here that are great people. You've got some opportunities, and I have already experienced that. Like I said, when I was in Puerto Rico, for those that missed the beginning of the show, I met with one of our subscribers. He reached out to me, he emailed me, and we met in Puerto Rico. He At the meeting, he brought 4 other gentlemen, and they were a powerhouse. And I was actually really excited to have had that opportunity from someone from that out there like yourselves on YouTube that I had never met him in person. And so we sat down, we had a meeting, and we're looking at going forward on some opportunities based on their knowledge and my experience, and we're gonna, if all thing works out well, we're gonna take and be able to really do some great things out there. So, I believe that some of you out there, just like this person, you've got some relationships, you've got some contacts, you have some connections, and if we can leverage that to all, get a piece of the pie, I'm all for it. Okay, so I want to extend that out to you guys. Send me an email. Let me know what you want, and let's see how we can make it worth everyone's time. Um, because, like I said, the ultimate goal is to grow your businesses, to grow the firms, and so I want to be there every which way I can. All right, guys. So, anything else? Anybody out there? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out the message today. Thank you guys for joining us as always. At the top, you can click on the button to join Live GovCon Club. That's my subscription email list where we're going to be sending out emails. Want to learn more at the bottom? We've got the next upcoming video. And as always, subscribe to us. We are actually approaching 1,000 subscribers. So thank you guys for sharing. Thank you guys for spreading the love with the videos. I have actually received several opportunities to speak and helping more business out there. But yeah, I suspect in the very short term we'll be at 1,000 plus subscribers. And so yeah, if you missed the video, go back and watch it today. And I'll see you guys on Thursday.